I think wonder to be here in Puerto Rico. You guys have an amazing society here. It's just absolutely aesthetically beautiful, but I think made only better by the people of the island. And the governor and his wife were so gracious last night. It was a special event for those of us, who had the privilege and the opportunity to have that dinner with the governor. It was amazing. I want to thank, like Jose said, the folks, the good folks that are here today who are represented. We're very pleased that we can have members of the faith community, members of the business community, university students who are all deeply concerned and deeply, I think, focused on what it takes to build a better and freer society. And that's really why, why we had launched the LIBRE Initiative. I wanted to focus my remarks before we get into the panel real quick, and if you can bear with me for about 7-8 minutes. My intent is to focus on the legacy of freedom of our nation, and really what inspires me as the executive director of the LIBRE Initiative to advance the cause that we advance, and why freedom is so important, not only for Americans and everybody here, but also for the rest of the world. Hopefully that, and then get into our panel's discussions, and then of course culminate with Governor Fortuño's address later this afternoon. America's founding fathers felt so strongly about freedom that they fought a revolution against the most powerful nation in the world at the time to assure that ours would be a nation of free individuals. They didn't draw their principles out of thin air. Rather, they sought to affirm and even institutionalize precepts already deeply rooted within the culture. Alexis de Tocqueville put it this way: the revolution in the United States was produced by a mature and reflective taste for freedom. He wrote, and not by a vague and indefinite instinct of independence. It was not supported by passions of disorder, but on the contrary, it advanced with a love of order and of legality, the rule of law. To the founders, liberty was not a new or abstract concept. They understood freedom to be both a right and a sacred responsibility, that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that those rights came from the hand of God Almighty, not from the benevolence of a state. That those rights could not be taken away by man or a state because they were God-given, and each one of us holds those rights, those freedoms. Freedom of conscience, the freedom of faith, and in economic freedom. One to be guarded jealously, and they knew freedom couldn't preserve itself, and that government could not be trusted to defend it. It would survive and thrive only as long as each generation actively used it and passed it on to the next generation. Freedom is not passed on through the blood, Ronald Reagan said. It has to be passed on from one generation to the next. And once you lose it for a very, very long time. Our founders' divinely inspired foresight that ours would be a nation of free people resulted in more scientific, technological, medical, and material progress in the past 200 years than in the entire history of the world. 318 US Nobel Prize winners, far and away more than any other country. Unconceivable inventions that changed the world, too numerous to list. Medical and technological advances that have saved millions around the world. Our bounty of wealth doubled lifespans, reduced infant mortality rates tenfold, made our environment cleaner, and lifted more people out of poverty than any other system in world history. Truly, as George Washington stated in his inaugural address, no people can be bound to acknowledge and adore the invisible hand which conducts the affairs of men more than those in the United States. Today, even the former Soviet Union has adopted free market economic structures and privatization. It took them a very long time, but they finally realized freedom is better. The kind of freedom that is now beginning to take root throughout Asia, Brazil, India, and Mexico. And the results have been staggering. They are seeing GDP growth at higher rates than in the United States today. According to the latest World Bank statistics, the adoption of market principles has done much to reduce the global poverty rate. In 2010, it was half of that in 1990. meaning the UN's Millennium Development Goal of having the poverty rate from 1990 to 2015 has already been met, despite the financial crisis. East Asia, for example, cut the proportion in extreme poverty from 77% in 1981 to 14% in 2008. 14% is unacceptable, but we're on our way. Despite all this improvement around the globe, there is no doubt there is much progress to be made. Still, you rarely hear praises about the wealth and abundance the market system has provided. In fact, many take for granted the bonanza of wealth that we have benefited from. Milton Friedman once said, "Every time capitalism has been tried, it has succeeded. Whereas every time socialism has been tried, it has failed." Yet today, many point to the markets as having failed, that they haven't worked, someone famously said. Choosing to ignore history, some argue that capitalism has just not produced adequate results and point to inequality as the main reason we should curtail continued insistence in such a system. But the question is, would you rather eliminate inequality or eliminate poverty? Is it best if we were all equally poor, which is what socialism promises, which is what socialism delivered? Consider this. The World Bank has estimated that it only takes $34,000 a year after taxes to be among the richest 1% in the world, and that half of the 1% live in the United States. That's right. Probably all of us in this room make up the 1% of the world. What produced this bounty? It is the freedom to hold property and have it protected. It is the freedom to use your God-given talents to produce a product or a service that makes society better and gain profit from it. It is the freedom to accumulate capital. And in having done so, we have built the most powerful and the most generous society in world history. Now, why do we insist in the freedom to build capital, to build wealth? First of all, this is the freedom that gives the individual personal freedom from government dependence. But even more importantly, it is only through the accumulation and sufficiency of capital that we strengthen our individual condition, the family unit, and create opportunities to propagate endless charitable, spiritual, or even evangelical-related activity. Only when individuals are in control of their own economic destiny, not central planners, can he or she prosper, find personal happiness, and preserve other individual liberties. Churches, for example, need a vibrant and prosperous membership in order for them to best fulfill their godly mission, to advance the gospel to all the world. But ask North Koreans how free they are to do so, and compare the freedom of South Koreans in this same endeavor. South Korea is number 2 behind the United States in sending out more missionaries to the world. North Korea doesn't even register. You see, if government controls the economy, it excessively taxes and regulates its citizenry. Then it controls the capital required for individuals to fulfill their aims and not the aims of another. Agreed, capitalism is not a perfect system, but it is the best system. It says nobody knows what does it for you. Nobody knows what makes you happy. You have to figure it out. Our founding fathers, our founding charters challenge you to strike out on your own and make use of your talents, your abilities, and your creativity to achieve your dreams, not that of a politician's. It is the earned success that will bring more fulfillment than a government check ever will, as the American Enterprise Institute's Arthur Brooks has stated so eloquently when he writes. Yet today, government that presumes to know best has been reallocating wealth at record levels, deficit has ballooned, thousands of rules are being pushed by nameless bureaucrats, and an unsustainable debt has put our economic future in peril and discouraged essential risk-taking. Entrepreneurs won't create capital, and investment has been disappearing. Innovation and production has declined, and opportunities have diminished. We had 1.5% GDP growth in the last 3 months, when we have averaged 3.5 in the last 50 years. And giving up American individualism To gain economic security, we have wound up with neither. Plainly, solutions to the economic problems facing America have not been found in restricting free markets, redistribution, or limiting the creation of wealth. Now, let me be clear. Government has a role. In any good society, the government must do what only the government can do. Things like keeping order internally and externally, enforcing agreements and defending property rights, defending us from foreign aggression, and playing the umpire to make sure that fair rules of the market are adhered to. But the market must do what only the market can do. Allow for the creation of wealth and provide employment by combining goods and services that satisfy consumers. And just as important, only the family can create the next generation of human beings who will become good citizens, good sons and daughters, and grow up to fulfill his or her godly calling. Congressman Paul Ryan recently wrote, "Government should promote expanded opportunities, not force equal outcomes. Free enterprise is about more than material riches. It incorporates moral truths about personal dignity, equal opportunity, job security, ending poverty and dependency, increasing upward mobility, and taking responsibility for self and family." Our current tax system and policies discourage activities that we need most: hard work, production, savings, investment, and risk-taking. We should tax people when they spend their wealth, not when they create it. This is why we are in San Juan today. Governor Fortuño's strategic model for new economy has it right. The solution is found in the individual Americans free to pursue their dreams. When we read that he has led the fight in Puerto Rico to cut taxes, to cut the growth in size and scope of government in order to free capital within the private sector, when we read that the crushing burden of debt and deficit has been slashed, and when we read from afar that the needless regulations have been streamlined to improve competitiveness, well, it causes us to cheer and applaud. I am filled with pride to know that the Hispanic and Latino elected officials like Senator Marco Rubio, New Mexico Governor Susana Martinez, Nevada Governor Brian Sandoval, Congressman Raul Labrador, and Governor Luis Fortuño are front and center on the effort to advance the principles of self-reliance, fiscal responsibility, and constitutionally limited government. People across America are responding to their leadership, and a new and young generation is rising up to take the mantle of economic leadership that honors our nation's struggle to secure and preserve the free people and a free nation. I'll conclude by saying, we launched the LIBRE Initiative to reclaim our God-given freedoms because we desire a return to fiscal responsibility and an end to unsustainable big government policies. Robert Kennedy said, "Government, by the consent of the people, must be limited in its power to act against its people, so that there is no interference with the right to worship, no restriction for any man to become educated or seek opportunity, gain wealth, and fortune. Denial of freedom will be fought against by the American electorate, for freedom is in our blood, it's in our heritage, and it is in our destiny." And I could not agree with you more. Thank you. I look forward to the panels and of course, the governor's remarks.